I'm Zach.
And I'm Darcy. Did you know that pornography doesn't have to destroy you or your marriage? We're the parents of 8 active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we love to help people just like you.
We're here to share hope and healing as we take you through our journey and the journeys of our amazing clients to greater joy and love. Come grow with us to a happier, more meaningful life. Welcome to the Self-Mastery Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another beautiful Mastery Monday here on the Self-Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Spafford. So I want to tell you about a conversation I had today. We've kind of been going back and forth. This woman reached out to me on Instagram and wanted a little bit of help, wanted a little bit of a conversation on how she could help the people in her life, because she has been, she has a husband who has been dealing with pornography for their entire marriage, and she has worked really hard to get to a place where she is starting to be curious and working really hard not to shame this partner. And now she has 2 young boys, and I say young boys, they're late teens, early 20s, and they are struggling with pornography, and she wants to help them. And she wants to give them the tools that they need to get them from where they are right now to a place where pornography is no longer a problem. And she's not sure what they need. She's done a lot of work on her end. She's gotten herself to a place where this isn't about shame. This is about, I'm here. I'm your mom. I'm ready to talk about this. I'm willing to talk about this. I don't need anything from you, but I want to give you the tools that you need so that you can succeed. So that conversation got me thinking, and she and I discussed, maybe sharing with her a certain set of, the podcasts that, a couple of podcast episodes that might give her a place to start with her husband or with her boys. Just, here are the podcast episodes that I would recommend for you to start listening to, kind of as a quick little roadmap of here's, the basics to get you started on this process. So I want to talk about 3 things that you need, what it takes to quit pornography, the key items that I would say everyone needs, and then I'm going to give you 2 of the podcast episodes that I think address that fairly well. And I'd love to hear what you guys think address these particular things well. But these 3 things that I have observed are necessary for everyone to succeed in overcoming pornography. So let me just start with number 1, willingness to think differently about the problem. This is a struggle that you've probably been told is, it's an addiction. You might think I'm a terrible person because I do this and I don't tell my partner, or I struggle and I have struggled my whole life and I've worked hard and I still am not succeeding, and it's just hopeless, and it could be any number of things. You think about the way that you think about pornography right now. And what I'm saying is that you need to begin to have a willingness to think differently about the problem. You need to understand the problem differently than you do now. You need to think about pornography in a way that is not the way that you probably have been taught. And I'm just going to say that. That's not to diminish anything from the moral teachings that you've been given. It's not to diminish anything from the church leadership who's trying their best to give you their advice and give you the information that they think you need. But what I want you to say, or what I want you to understand, is that there is a different level that we can take this to that will give you even more purchase on the capacity that you need to actually eliminate pornography. So what does it look like to have that willingness? Well, number 1, it looks like, and this is what happened for me. I had to sit down and go, well, what do I know about this? And what do I think I know? And could I think about it differently? So, I thought about how I used to believe that I was a porn addict. And I think that's everybody who grows up in the church, that's a pretty standard way of thinking about pornography use. So what if that's not the right way to think about it? What if it's something completely different and we don't, you have never been taught what it is? Who was it? Brigham Young famously believed that the moon was made of cheese. Right? And now we're like, no, that's not true. But if everybody always thought that the moon was made of cheese and no one ever had this willingness to think about it differently, we would probably, maybe we wouldn't know that the moon's a giant rock that circles the earth instead of, something else. And this is the point. When you think about pornography, all I really want you to do is say, what do I think I know about pornography? And could any of that be wrong? Could any of that be off? Could any of that be, could I still see it as something that I don't want in my life, but think about it in a different way? So one of the things that is a key thing that you have to think about differently when you come to my program, this is what I teach you, is pornography is, it's not actually the problem. It's not the problem. The problem is the reason why you're choosing pornography. If you're choosing pornography to escape, that's the problem. If you're choosing pornography to manage your emotions, that's the problem. It's not pornography itself that's the problem. It's the reason why you're choosing it. If you're choosing it as a way to minimize your emotions or maximize your pleasure so you don't have to deal with emotions, that's the problem. So 2 episodes that I want you to try. Episode 89, it's called Emotional Debtor. And in there I talk about how, when we utilize pornography as a way to manage our emotions, we create an emotional debt that our future self has to pay back in frustration and loneliness and a number of other emotions. And episode 100, which is aptly titled Pornography is Not the Problem. So those 2 episodes, I think, and I'll link to these in the show notes, but those 2 episodes, I think, are the very first episodes that I would like you to listen to so that you can begin thinking about pornography differently. The next thing that you need to do to quit pornography is have an understanding of what is happening and why. So many of us, when we have a moment where we choose pornography, we do our very best to try and distance ourselves from that moment as quickly as possible. We try to shove it down. We try to push it into the past. We try to run away from it in a sense, pretend it didn't happen. And what I want you to do instead, what you need to do instead is face it. You have to ask questions. You have to be willing to confront it objectively and curiously. You have to be willing to look at what happened and start understanding why it occurred. You have to go back in time, the 5, 10, 15 minutes before you turn to pornography. What's your emotional state? Why was I there? What did I tell myself? How was this choice the choice that became the obvious or the apparent or even the next choice that I knew was going to happen, the inevitable choice? So just going through that process of understanding what is happening and why it's happening is going to give you a huge leg up on this. Because in number 1, in the willingness to think differently about the problem, if you are willing to think differently about it, you're going to see there are patterns, there are processes, there are systems that you've put in place to help you manage your emotions that you never would have seen if you didn't take a step back and say, what actually happened? So the 2 episodes I want you to listen to are episode 82, which is Easter, the Atonement and Agency. And this is a podcast episode based on the talk that I give called Taquitos and Why Can't I Pray Away Pornography, which is one of my very favorite talks that I've ever given. And this is about how can I utilize the information that I have to move forward? How can I understand why I'm choosing this, why prayer may not be working for me, why my agency seems to have been lost. That's what that episode talks about, and it will give you, I think, a really good foundation of how to understand why you are choosing pornography and what is happening when you do choose it. And then I want you to go to episode 57, which is called Learn Something and Move Forward. And this episode is designed specifically around learning what happened. A lot of times, in business, we do a post-mortem on any of our projects. You go through, and sometimes you do a pre-mortem. So you could actually learn something and move forward before the next time you choose pornography. But in a post-mortem or a pre-mortem situation, what you do is you go through and you say, well, in a pre-mortem, it's what do we anticipate will go wrong? And then you solve for that. But in a post-mortem situation on a project, you say, what went well, what didn't go well? How can we adjust for that in the next project? What are the things that we learned? All of that stuff. That's what we're doing in understanding what is happening and why. Because when we choose to understand what happens instead of running from what's happened and trying to distance ourselves from what happened, we can make better decisions. I firmly believe, I was in sales for a long time, and I would always say this to people. I would always say, I firmly believe that if I give you enough information, you will make good decisions. And that is, I think, true here as well. Now, you may need some additional help along the way. You may need somebody to kind of help you interpret some of that data. That's what a coach is for. That's, that's what I do. That's what my individual coaching program is for. That's what the self-mastery membership is for. Those are available to you to help you succeed. But the first thing that you've got to do, if you're not ready to make that step, the first thing you got to do is you got to start understanding what's happening for you. And these two episodes, Learn Something and Move Forward, and Easter and the Atonement and the Agency, those are going to help you start there. And then the last thing that you need is a specific set of skills. I'm reminded of Liam Neeson in Taken, and he says, I have a particular set of skills honed over a lifetime, and I'm going to find you is what he says, right? Which is such a, I don't know if you've never watched that movie, it's one of my favorites, but this is something that I talk about often with people. Sometimes people go to counselors, or sometimes people come to me and they're like, well, you're not a counselor, or you're not, you don't have a PhD or a master's degree. You're not a MCSW. You're not whatever, right? You're not a clinical psychologist. Whatever it is that you think that I should be, they're saying you don't have a credential that I'm looking for. And I just ask them, well, who would you rather learn from? A Harvard professor who has, 30 years of experience learning about a business process, about business in general, but he's never made payroll, he's never hired anyone, he's never fired anyone, and he's never had to actually make a profit? Or would you rather learn from a person who has 30 years in business, and throughout that time, he's honed his craft, he's made profit, he's learned from his mistakes, and made millions of dollars, employed thousands of people, and profited himself, his company, and his stakeholders? And inside my membership, and in individual coaching, you'll find the skills that I teach, they are different than anything anyone else has offered you, partly because my experience in solving for this problem myself has led me down this path. And more than that, I have taken, it's kind of funny because with me, in a sense, you get both the Harvard professor and the person who's been in business because, I'm a certified coach. I have learned ACT from, the best names in acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm not a therapist, but I've learned all of the skills that they use, and I use them as a coach so that you can actually succeed. And this is the difference. And if you want to get the specific set of skills that you need, you're going to want to get somebody who's going to help you because they know how to do it. At least that's what I would want. And that's what I offer you guys both in my membership and in individual coaching. I give you those things so that you don't have to wonder, is this going to work? It's not a matter of, is this going to work? It's always a question of when. And when I say that, so we bought this house a year ago. And, that first summer, that first spring, I just chopped down 40 trees or something. And we started to do all kinds of landscaping. I had, I built a wall in the backyard so that we could extend the yard a little bit and kind of make a firm setting back there. And I did a bunch of things. And then I hurt my back, and I wasn't able to really work in the yard. And part of that actually, I had a loss of testosterone because of the steroids they were giving me, which is kind of a weird thing. It wasn't something that I expected, but it actually lowered my drive. It lowered my desire to work. It lowered all kinds of things in me. And it created this problem where all of the progress that I had made in getting the yard done stopped. And then what? Well, started to figure some more things out, started to pay attention to my health, started to talk to a doctor and say, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm tired all the time. I have no ambition anymore. And so they gave me some, they gave me testosterone shots, which that's the most weird thing I've ever seen in my life. Stabbing yourself in the stomach so that you can, so you can have testosterone. And this is about 6 or 8 weeks ago, I started these testosterone shots. My whole life is different. And in the last probably 3.5 weeks, I've made miles and miles of progress on the yard. I have gotten back a lot of my energy. I've gotten back a lot of my ambition, my sense of I need to do something. I need to, create something. I need to build something. And I tell you that story to just give you an understanding that you're going to learn these skills and you're going to try them and you're going to get good at them. And maybe something will fall off over time. Something might happen where you're like, well, I'm going to go back to my old habits because whatever. But when you come back to these skills and you begin using them again. So who was it? Tony Dungy, I think, who was the coach of the Colts in the NFL. If you don't know, the NFL, the Colts did a number of years where they would go to the playoffs and then they wouldn't succeed. And in one of the books, it's not Atomic Habits, but it's one of the habit books, he talks about how he taught his team a specific set of skills so that every time they would see a certain layout, they knew how to react. So it was here's the cue, here's the response that you need to have that or to succeed, and then the reward will be that you make the play. So he taught them this cue, response, reward process. Well, it took them to the playoffs twice. And each time in the playoffs, it's this highly emotional, highly charged atmosphere, and they lose. Why did they lose? They go back and they do a postmortem on this. So going back to postmortems, super important. They go back and they do a postmortem on this, and what he found was that these players who had been playing football their entire lives, when it came to those highly charged moments, they would go back to what they knew. And 2 years in a row this happens. Year 3, they get to the playoffs. They go through the playoffs. They don't stop doing what they were taught. They stick with the cue, response, reward that Tony Dungy has taught them. And guess what? They go to the Super Bowl. They win the Super Bowl. So what I'm telling you, what I'm saying is you need to learn this specific set of skills, but you also need to be willing to keep trying, keep practicing it. So, just like in my yard, you might have some dips and then come back to it. Just like Tony Dungy, you might get really, really good for a while and find that you get to the big game and you fall back on old habits. Get back on it. Keep going. Keep doing. Because I know this stuff works. So 2 episodes that I want you to try to learn a specific set of skills. So I'm telling you, hey, you need to learn these set of skills. So here's where the set of skills are. I want you to try episode number 141, 3 Secrets to Managing Emotions. And then I want you to try episode 131. choice point to overcome pornography. You guys will know, if you've listened to all my podcasts, you'll know that over the course of, the last 144 episodes, this is the 144th episode, plus all the bonus episodes, that I'm teaching you skills every single week. So, you could literally listen to every single episode and learn new skills. But I want you to just go to those two. If you go through those two and you listen to them and you start practicing what you learn in there, you're going to have a leg up on everybody else. Okay. I love you guys. I hope this is helpful. Please feel free to reach out to me and tell me, reach out to me on Instagram or follow me on Instagram and, send me a message, whatever, and just tell me which episodes you think would be the most helpful to, for anybody who's a brand new listener. And I will integrate that into, I'd like to get a document together and tell people these are the most impactful episodes. If you listen to them first, you will get a huge bump. All right, you guys, I love you, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Self-Mastery Podcast. Every day, Darcy and I work with amazing men and women to remove pornography from their lives and relationships. If you're ready to take the next step in your journey, let us help you. Sign up for a consult at zachspafford.com/workwithme, and you can set up some time for you or your spouse to meet with me or with Darcy, and we can help you get started on your self-mastery journey. Thanks for listening to Thrive Beyond Pornography. If you're seeking guidance and support to overcome pornography for good and begin creating a thriving life beyond it, check out my free webinar, How to Overcome Pornography with Skills That Actually Work. You'll learn practical, proven skills guided by an expert coach who has personally overcome pornography. Whether you're getting started for just yourself or along with your spouse, Darcy and I can teach you the tools that will help you put your life on the right path for you. Be sure to check out the show notes for a direct link, and if you could take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, it would mean the world to us. Your reviews play a significant role in helping others discover the show so they can join us on this transformative journey. Thank you for being part of the Thrive Beyond Pornography community. Until our next episode, stay strong, stay focused, and keep thriving.